Welcome to my second day of my weight loss journey. This is another update. I've been having a look today at some of the food that I've been recording. I do the research myself on the calorific values and fat content and all that sort of stuff. So I've put a little piece in with that as well. And I do this all on my own research. It's research that I'm getting from other websites and from other people, books and things like that. So I don't actually have anything in front of me that I'm following as a guide. I'm making it up as I go. So I've also done a recording, brought forward today my statistics again from my smartwatch. It's got how much sleep I had last night, and it's got my blood pressure, heart rate and oxygen level. I do see the heart rates come down, I think from 80 something to about 65, which is good. But I also see that the blood pressure levels come down from about 124 over 73. It's down to about 102 over 73. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on that and just keep an eye on it over the next few days and just see. I don't want that getting too low. But anyway, that's just another side to this weight loss journey that I'm on. And as I said, I've been looking at the foods I've been eating that I've had yesterday and recorded them to the best of my ability as per their calorific values and energy and all that sort of thing. And I actually record it into a spreadsheet and then transfer it onto a PowerPoint, which I'm then able to convert into a very short video. So it's not only just learning all the foodie and healthy things, it's learning a bit more technology on how I can get information that I can transfer to either a film or something to go onto this video. So that in itself is a bit of an exercise on its own. So as well as that, I've been having a think back at how we get to the stage, or how I've got to the stage that I am now. Now, as I said, I'm in my 70s, grew up as a child in the 50s and 60s, and I can see that eating patterns especially are so different now, and they have been for the last few decades, than they were back in the 50s and 60s. Now, anyone that's around about my age group is going to probably understand exactly what I mean here. Later generations probably don't understand the strict eating programs that we used to have, or not programs so much, but timings. I remember, just an example, like during the week as a kid, I would wake up in the morning, you'd have breakfast, which would either be cereal or toast or porridge or something like that, and you'd have that and then you'd head off to school. Every time, all the schools I went to, I always had a cut lunch. I was never able to come home for lunch. So you would have probably a couple of sandwiches, maybe a couple of plain biscuits and a piece of fruit. Now, come morning tea time or playtime, whichever it was, around about 10 o'clock in the morning, when the bell would go, you'd get about 15 minutes. So you'd dive into your lunch pack and you'd either pull out your piece of fruit or one of the biscuits or something, and that would be your morning tea. And then you'd go through another session at school until lunchtime, when the lunchtime bell came, and then once you're allowed out to go and have lunch, everyone had to sit down. You had your lunch and you had to sit down and eat your lunch. For the first half an hour, it was sitting down with your packed lunch, and you would sit there and eat your lunch. You weren't allowed to roam around the paddock. You had to sit there and eat your lunch. Now, I'm talking primary school here, not so much secondary, high school, but I'm thinking about the time that I'm thinking of, like the 50s and 60s. And so you would have your lunch, and then afternoon tea time or playtime in the afternoon, you'd just have a bit of a play, drink of water or whatever, and then that was it until you got home. I know after you'd get home, you may be able to just have a piece of bread and butter and a bit of jam or something like that on it, or a piece of fruit, but that was it until mealtime. And then once mealtime came round, it was dinner time, everyone sat at the table and you had a structured meal, and it was mostly home cooked, pretty well always home cooked. It was usually the old meat and 3 vegetables or something like that. Occasionally you might get a dessert afterwards, but not all the time. And that was what you ate. That was your daily intake of food. And then being a kid, of course, on top of that, you had all the activity that you'd be running around the playground, or you'd have your sports sessions, and you'd always have a gym, you'd have phys ed. You always had to have a phys ed session a couple of times a week for like half an hour where you'd have to do star jumps, but that was a class that was essential. You had to partake in the physical education session. And then you would come home and you'd be running around after school, riding your bike, and everyone was always active. There was none of this sort of hanging around the house. And you used to be able to go off and play. It didn't matter where you were going. I was in a small town. You'd head off around to your friend's place, and as long as you were home by a certain time for dinner, then that was fine. But nowadays, eating seems to start at whatever time you get up in the morning, and it's sort of like a non-stop process all through the day. I occasionally go into, like in the morning, if I'm buying a coffee first thing in the morning round in the coffee cart, and there's a bread shop or a bakery right next door, and there's kids in there and they're buying sausage rolls and cakes and all this sort of stuff, and that's their breakfast. And then they get sort of another same amount, and that's their lunch that they take off to school. And who knows what on earth they're eating when they get home at night. And, is it takeaways? Is it KFC? Is it McDonald's? Or is it Pizza Hut? And there doesn't seem to be any actual guidelines to how your meals should be structured each day. And based on that, I can understand why there is a weight problem. And of course, kids aren't really as active as much these days. They seem to spend a lot more time on their phones and their computers and, sitting down at their computers and things like that. So it's a societal thing on this weight problem. And I really just don't know what the answer is. I know it's not going to happen that you turn your clock back to the 50s and 60s, because there is a lot more food. Food has become more commercialised than just having the local fish shop, the local butcher and the local grocery shop, which was what, before supermarkets became a known thing. But there wasn't the takeaway shops that there was. There might have been the local fish and chip shop or the bakery that sold a pie or something like that. But it's almost become an obsession every day now with people they've got to have something in their hand that's being stuffed into their mouth. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is, it's just food going in, and it's a non-stop process. So I often wonder how to get back to that point again. I know here in New Zealand, when you go out for a meal, that when you go to a restaurant, when I was over in the States, and I'd go to a place, I think I went to Denny's and had a meal there, and it was huge. It was just huge. And here, your meals are only about half the size. But the thing is, we don't tip here. We pay a reasonable price for our meals. The food, hopefully, most of it is consumed. It's not thrown out. Staff are paid a decent wage so that they don't have to rely on tips. And everything seems to be financially a thing that's doable. And we don't have sort of the waste of food that I've seen in other places where huge big meals have been served. But for those, that's okay for those that don't eat those meals. But what about those ones that do? And when you're carrying extra weight around, it can be called padding, it can be called a muffin top or just a little surplus that you're carrying around, it's fat. That's what it is. It's just fat. Doesn't matter where it is, whatever name you want to call it, it's still fat. And it's not only the fat under your skin, it's the fat that's sort of within your body as well. And I think that's your visceral fat is within your body, and then your subcutaneous is under your skin. It's just fat. It's, you know, it's not big muscle or I'm not big boned or, you know, you get all these big excuses about people, you know. It's easy to say, oh, well, I'm big boned and that's why I'm so heavy, or, you know, I've got a lot of, you know, my fat turns to muscle, or when you stop exercising, your muscle turns to fat. No, it doesn't. Your muscle just shrinks and you start adding fat cells. So it's just a little bit of a merry-go-round, really, just understanding, you know, how these weight problems come about over the generations. And sadly, I don't see that there's a way around a solution to it. But I know myself, even though I've been sort of like at random, you'll go out to the shops and you'll have a coffee and you might have a muffin or something with it. I've stopped all that. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm having my breakfast, have a cup of tea at morning tea time. I'll have my lunch, and nothing again till dinner time. And I'm trying to get back to that very structured eating plan so that I'm not just at random throwing other little bits and pieces in my mouth, that it's like if you don't eat it at meal times, then it doesn't count. So it does count. And I'm trying to avoid all those situations as I'm working through this plan of mine. I'm still to start looking at exercises. I do want to do up an exercise plan, and I'll do that over the next day or so. But the thing is too, the other thing that I want to do is, because I want to be doing these regularly, every day if I can, these catch-ups or updates, and I want to have a place that I can actually set up as being permanent, that I can just come sit down by the camera and do the job. But at the moment I've sort of got to take my tripod and where am I going to do it today, or where's the sun shining, or what's happening, or... So it's depending on what time of day I do it. In the house, it's a matter of sort of trying to avoid the sunshine or bright lights coming in the windows. That's one thing else I'm going to do. And I'm looking so much at this space behind me, which is in a spare bedroom, which I've got quite a bit of stuff stored in here. But it actually has got a spare bed for anyone that comes and stays. But I want to get this corner set up so that it's like a presentable sort of a backdrop for my videos rather than just a plain wall behind me. So I have got a few other little bits and pieces of things that are in the pipeline. And so as I'm working through them, I'll sort of say, you know, how things are developing and how I'm trying to get them to fit in with my eating program. But as I say, at the moment, I'm still ticking along. It's all going okay. During this video, I'll have put up little bits and pieces of some of the food and things that I've been eating. And I'll keep doing that every day and try and keep developing little systems and posting those as well. So anyone that's following can get a bit of an idea of what's going on. And as I said, if anyone's got any ideas, they can throw at me. I'm interested in reading them. But anyway, in the meantime, that's for me for this time today. I will get on and I've got to get this edited and away before I get to bed. So I'll get on and get this done now, and I'll look at start planning on what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. So in the meantime, if you have enjoyed this video, if you've got anything out of it, please like and make a comment, and you can subscribe if you would like to, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, stay safe everybody. Bye.